Howdy hey, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm going to be doing my quick little reaction or review to RuPaul's Drag Race, the COVID special. So if that sounds good to you, make sure to like this video, comment down below what you thought about the special, and hit that subscribe button. And without further ado, let's get this video started. Alright, so when I first saw the idea of this episode, I thought it was just going to be like solely focused on the queens during the show, during filming, specifically with coronavirus and how they handled it and all the things like that. Well, we did get that. It seemed almost like a walkthrough in the process of from the beginning of the auditioning to the end of filming during this crazy time that we're in. And it was really interesting, honestly, to sort of see what all the queens were dealing with throughout the entire time as they were getting ready to go film Drag Race, as they were filming Drag Race, and then leaving from Drag Race. So I'm going to sort of separate it into those separate parts and give you my thoughts and my opinions on all the above. First things first, I want to say it was really well done. I do want to say that. I think this was a very well made episode. I really enjoyed it. Honestly, I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. I thought it was just going to kind of be a waste of an episode, if I'm being honest with you guys. And I'll give you some of my summing up thoughts later in the video, but for now I'm going to start with the beginning. Obviously it started out with the process of the audition. How all the queens filmed their auditions while we were still in lockdown, basically, and they didn't know if they were going to be able to even film Drag Race, because no one really knew what was happening, no one knew what was next. There are a few points specifically I really wanted to point out of this, Anyways, some of the queens actually ended up catching COVID before filming, which is wild, because I can't imagine being a full-time drag entertainer, catching COVID, and then not being able to do your work. Like, that sounds terrifying. Everyone wasn't able to do their work because of the virus, obviously. And they all had to stay home. So there was a lot of I could sense a lot of anxiety piling up and things like that, because obviously you don't know when it's gonna end. Like, we still don't really know when this is all ending. And it just brought me back to, like, the beginning of quarantine and, like, where I was in that process. And it's just really weird to see that, because I haven't thought about that in, like, a year now, basically. It's been a year since this all started, and I can't believe we're still in it. Anyways, that was my own tangent on that. Sorry. But we found out that Olivia caught COVID. We found out Candy caught COVID. Like, multiple queens caught COVID before they even went to go film. And I just can't even imagine, like, how scary that would be, knowing that, like, you potentially caught it while you were performing. Like, that's just so scary. I did think it was interesting how we also saw some of their audition tapes. I thought that was really cool, actually, getting to see sort of a behind-the-scenes look at their auditions for Drag Race and how they were chosen and all that. I thought that was pretty neat. Yeah, that was about it. It did, obviously they sent in their audition tapes and started to hear back from Drag Race. While all of this was happening, we were going through the Black Lives Matter movement. There was a major point involving the Black Lives Matter movement during the special. I thought that was really important, because it's something that's super important to talk about, and it's something that I feel like it's still going on. I'm not trying to say that, it's not the same, but I do feel like back in June, this was such a bigger topic, and it was really interesting to see all the queens, like, their perspectives on the Black Lives Matter movement and just how important it is and how important it still is, and it still needs to be talked about and still needs change. Anyways, I thought that was really, really a great point in the episode. I thought that was really cool to sort of see. But also, I want to talk a little bit about how the queens all had to get ready during a pandemic. Like, you were still in a pandemic when they got the calls. So they had to get all their outfits together without necessarily having the materials that they would normally have, like a wig shortage. Who would have thought that there would have been a wig shortage? I was shocked by that. I didn't know that. Because, like, imagine getting ready for Drag Race and not even knowing where you're going to get a wig or where you can get shoes. Like Rose, who ordered, what was it, like 10 pairs of the same shoe and then just painted them different colors so that she could use them for different outfits. Like, that was wild to learn. So, anyways, the getting ready process seemed really interesting to me. Excuse me. I do think that they did put a lot of focus on the getting ready process, which honestly, I appreciate, honestly. It seemed like they had 5 weeks. Excuse me. They basically had 5 weeks to get ready from the call to when they had to be ready for Drag Race. So 5 weeks to get all of their outfits together during a pandemic. Like, what? That's crazy. I just can't believe that they were able to accomplish such a feat and, like, do it really well, honestly. And it makes sense now, the more I think about it. Like, with the runways that we've been getting, a lot of them are just a very general topic. And it makes sense, because you don't want to make the queens' lives that much harder to make such a specific garment that they need to make when they might not be able to get all the materials that they would normally. So I thought that was a really interesting perspective to really get more insight on, honestly. So I guess the runways are starting to make a lot more sense to me. I still think the queens are killing it, don't get me wrong, but I was just like, I didn't think about it that way. Anyways, so I was talking about that, the pre-filming. Now I'm going to get into the actual filming. It was interesting learning about, obviously when the queens arrived in Hollywood, they all had to quarantine for 2 weeks, or 10 days. So they all had to quarantine in hotel rooms by themselves for basically 2 weeks to create a bubble. I thought it was interesting how, like, they were basically in a bubble as soon as they got into the airport, because they were driven off in, like, individual cars with, like, plastic shields and everything, and then they were put in hotel rooms for basically 2 weeks with zero human interaction. And I'm just like, that's crazy. Like, I couldn't do that. I would go crazy. And I just can't imagine, like, going through all that, not knowing what's going on in the outside world necessarily, not knowing what's going on with your families, not knowing what's going on with, like, all the above. Like, that's just terrifying. I wouldn't want to do that. Anyways, so that happened. We found out about the 2 weeks of that. Then they would get letters with, like, their meals and things like that, until the day came when they finally got to start filming. And now we're going to get into the filming process. One thing I thought was really interesting about the filming process that we learned was how, obviously the queens were all in a bubble. But that didn't mean everyone else was in the same bubble. The entire staff was not in the same bubble. So everyone on the production staff had to be wearing face shields, masks, everything, and staying 6 feet, obviously, away from the queens and from each other, at least 6 feet. There were so many precautions put into place by the staff at World of Wonder. It was wild to see. It really, like, I think they did a really good job of making sure that these queens were safe. Like, it was wild because they were in a bubble, so they were able to still interact with each other, which is something that I'm sure they really appreciated. But, even beyond that, like, because you're in the bubble, everyone outside of the bubble who's interacting with you can't touch you, can't look, like, get close to you, any of the above. And I'm just like, that's crazy. I really enjoyed learning about how they filmed it, how the workroom was so much bigger to allow for more social distancing, how the confessionals were filmed was really interesting. They basically had an iPad and they were on Zoom calls and were asked questions and had to record answers for the confessionals. That was interesting. That was about it for the filming process, but I thought it was really interesting to see the actual process of the filming. If you haven't seen the special, definitely go watch it. But yeah, now we're gonna get into the post-filming where the queens all had to return back home, and they were out of the bubble, so they basically were put in the bubble where they felt completely safe, and then just out of the bubble where they could get sick at any point. Like, that's scary to go from that to then just going right back out. Anyways, that was about all the things I really wanted to talk about for the special. There were a few final points I wanted to make, though. First off, this thing had Emmy written all over it. This is them trying to get an Emmy. That's basically what this is. Honestly, it was really well done. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I just feel like this is Emmy bait written all over it. I also wanted to point out one thing. I thought that they could have done this as like a special thing that they released online and not necessarily its own episode, because I feel like a lot of people have been complaining, obviously, and I understand why people have been complaining. But if they had done it as a special online, I don't think they would have had as much of a negative feedback for it. I feel like a lot of people are tired of the season taking so long. I understand we're 8 weeks in and we've only had 4 queens eliminated. Like, what? 4 queens eliminated in 8 weeks. That makes sense. Sure. Anyways, obviously next week we will be having Snatch Game. I'm excited for that. I'm excited to get back into it, see queens finally going home again. Hopefully we'll be wrapping up the season shortly. I don't know. At this point, we're going to be on week 9 next week, and it's crazy. Obviously, we'll have to see what happens in the future, but I will definitely be reporting on all things Drag Race related. All-Stars 6 will probably be announced right around the corner at this point, because I think it's going to be premiering in early May. So it's likely that we'll get a cast announcement either in March or April, is my guess. Again, I could be wrong, but that's sort of my guess. So, like, within the next few weeks, I think we'll be getting an announcement for All-Star 6, so I will get you that information as soon as I can. And yeah, I will see you guys back here tomorrow for my Drag Race Roundup. Have a good rest of your day, enjoy it, and yeah, I'll see you later. Bye, guys.